Hello, welcome to part two. I was right in the middle, actually beginning, of discussing diagrams as a type of picture that you can utilize to make information interesting, okay? So, let me show you. Here's one of the best uses of a visual aid, okay? Visual aids, people think, I've got to have a visual aid to keep people interested. That's actually not true. You can keep people interested with good delivery and with really good speech craft. Okay, one of the things you can definitely do is use a visual aid to make information way more interesting and way easier for your audience to understand. So, for example, if I'm giving a speech that has to do with I'm trying to think of a reason why I would talk about tsunamis, which I'm about to show you the diagram for, okay? But let's just say I'm talking about why we need a better warning system for major natural disasters. Like, we've got pretty good warnings of earthquakes. There's earthquakes, not we kind of do for earthquakes. We really have it for hurricanes. I was meaning hurricane instead of earthquake. I have no idea how I did that. Even I grew up in Texas, where in the panhandle of Texas, where tornadoes are pretty common. You can get a pretty good warning on a tornado coming. Okay, but lots of people died in some of these tsunamis over the past decade or so, and so in my persuasive speech on why we need better natural disaster warnings for tsunamis, one of the things I might want to do is explain how a tsunami is formed. Okay, how it actually happens. And so instead of me standing here in front of you with nothing in front of us, and me just trying to explain it to you, like, well, okay, so imagine like way out in the ocean, this little earthquake thing happens, and then it comes together and it like shifts the water up, and it like causes this sort of reaction in the waves, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it gets closer to land. It's one thing for me to say that. It's another thing for me to pull this up and for you to be able to see how this happens. And so I say, so as I explain this, take a look at this diagram. And I can interact with it verbally, physically, while I'm speaking to you. And I can say, so if you would, take a look here at step number one. Step number one points out the very beginning of a tsunami. Now, if I were standing up in front of you and I had this on a screen or on a computer or something, I would point to the screen. I would actually sort of look and deal with the screen, okay? So but since I'm here, I'll use my mouse, okay? I would say, so the first step, and I would direct attention, and I would say, take a look down here at where this begins. An earthquake occurs where the seafloor actually snaps upwards, and it causes this column of water to shoot up. And so it shoots it up, but then gravity pulls it back down, and it sends the waves outward. And if the earthquake is big enough, it causes that column to shoot up enough, and the waves are going to start to get and gain momentum. And I would just use this diagram to show you how it gets bigger, 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 bigger as the land happens and it starts to wave. All this stuff. I would use the diagram to explain how a tsunami forms, and all of a sudden it's way more interesting. Than even though I'm using the same information, the picture makes it more interesting. Okay? Diagrams are great for that. So a lot of times my students in their persuasive speeches won't think to look for diagrams. Think of looking for a diagram. Okay? You would be surprised at what's out there. And since you have to have some outside sources, if it's a diagram put together by a credible source, you've now got a source. You can say, take a look at this diagram on how a tsunami forms that I found at the National Geographic Society. I don't know that exists, but it sounds like the magazine. I was meaning like an actual scientific website or something. But take a look at this, and then maybe you have a source citation, and it can really make mundane information interesting. Okay. So you have pictures. You can use a map. So many people do not think to use a map. If you're talking about a location somewhere, like in my speech on tsunamis, I could actually find a map and say, so take a look at this map. You can see the occurrences of tsunamis over the last however many years it was on the map. Okay? So one of the things that I did in preparing this is I just looked for a map, and I came across this upside down map of the world. And so in my persuasives, this could fit any I'm not saying anything. This could fit multiple contexts, okay? So I could use this upside down map of the world in my persuasive speech on why we should challenge and grow our world views. And I could say, for example, this is an upside down map of the world because there's no up or down in space. And the maps that we have seen are the ways that they are because that's the way we've decided to visualize it. You know, and I could use that to link to my worldview point. I mean, or I could just say, hey, look, this is a cool way of looking at the world. I mean, it's just an upside down map of the world. I'm pointing at the one on my other screen over here. It's an upside down map of the world, you know. So you've got South America here. Here's the United States, North America, all up here, right? Australia, and you know, this is an ocean-centric view of the world, which is fine. So anyway, you know, think about maps. If you're talking about a location in your speech, pop up a map. I can almost guarantee you that your audience is worse at geography than you think. And if you're referencing, you know, something happening in Iowa or Idaho or, you know, New Hampshire, people probably know where Colorado is and California and Arizona and Texas and Florida. But apart from that, they're not going to be just horribly sure where things are in the world. And so a map can always be a really good visual aid, easy to interact with, really cool to do. So you can also use a poster of some sort. All sorts of posters available out there for you to find. So I Googled feminism, okay? And this is one of the things that popped up. It's this old Joan of Arc trying to get women to buy war saving stamps from World War II. And it's one of the it's one of the first it's not the first, but it's one of the first sort of like targeting toward women as doing something strong and powerful. It's really cool. So it's not even like specific to feminism as a like academic or anything. It's just, but it fits. Okay, so you can put posters up. All right, and it works really well. Now all of these count as pictures. Okay, that's why I have all of these underneath pictures here. All of these count as pictures, and if you're going to use pictures, make sure the number is okay. If one picture is worth 1,000 words, 10 pictures is worth a lot more, right? Use them strategically. Use them on purpose. They make sure they're there for a reason, okay? If you've got 90 pictures on a slide, you know, ask yourself why. Why am I using this? Why am I showing this? What is the point? How is it aiding what I'm saying, okay? And then make sure it's big enough for people to see. All right, make sure it's big enough for your audience to actually see and understand what the heck's going on with it. Okay, so definitely watch the number, definitely watch the size. Is there a correct number? It's all context specific. I have had some speeches with one picture and it was all it needed and it was outstanding. I've had speeches with 30 pictures and it was outstanding. I've also had the opposite, where, you know, I've had 80 pictures and it didn't work, and then, you know, one and it didn't work too. So it's really context specific, it's really topic specific, but consider these different types. So right now you've got objects, you've got pictures. Now, carrying the point of making information interesting further, let's talk about charts, tables, and graphs, okay? So here's the deal. When we're dealing with graphs, tables, and charts, most people inherently just go, oh, but you should definitely look for these or maybe create one. They're so useful in a public speaking situation, okay? So useful. They visualize numbers. They give your audience a way of seeing information in a way that your mouth can't do by itself. Me saying, you know, for example, so take a look at this. And by the way, I did this on purpose, okay? So many of my students, and nowadays it's so much easier, but I still get visual aids with poor quality images in them, and you don't really have an excuse to do that anymore. So what I did was I took this and I blew it up to really the lowest quality that I'm okay with. Okay? Does that make sense? Like I purposefully got it to the worst quality that I would live with. Take note of this. And the reason why I did it for the graphs, tables, and charts is because across the board, those are the images that are the worst. People will find them and they won't know how to get it, and they'll blow it up thinking it's going to work, and it's just grainy and awful, and they can't even read it in the middle of their presentation. So, but take a look at this, talking about making information interesting. Okay, if I say the words, if I just say the words, the population growth has far exceeded the average growth rate percentage. That's boring. Okay? But if I say, take a look at this graph that I pulled from the United States Census Bureau last week. I didn't pull it from there, okay? But that's where you would find this, okay? And I said, so take a look at this graph that I pulled from the United States Census Bureau last week. This line down here at the bottom is the average growth rate percentage that was expected and projected, okay? So in 1950, so up until the current day, you know, we're just barely like, you know, maybe like right here. You know, we're almost to 2020, so we're right here, maybe. You can see this stuff is ridiculously higher than what was expected. This makes it way more interesting. It makes it way more interesting to give us something to visualize that difference between the average growth rate and what it should have been. You know, what it should have been and what it was. Okay, this makes it way more interesting. So line graphs work great. Bar graphs. Now, I found the absolute simplest version of this. You can, by the way, you can make all of this type of stuff yourself. If you find a little bit of information that you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to present this? Take a few minutes and open up. You can do it in Word. You can do it in Excel. You can do it in Google Sheets. And I think you can do it in Google Docs. I'm not sure. But you can make these. And this next one is one someone made. I blew it up, okay, to where you can even see the graininess of the font, okay? I blew it up. This is the lowest quality I would accept, okay? Student's favorite color. This is just someone who polled a class or two and said, here are the favorite colors. Now, I could just say, if I just said, so in a poll of 23 students, the favorite color was red. Okay, neat. It's better for me to pull this up and say, so take a look at this graph. In a poll of 23 students, or whatever, it's more than 23. But take a look at, this is way more interesting. You say, so what's interesting is how few people like pink or whatever, right? Like I can actually give us something to talk about rather than just saying the information, okay? Same thing here. Pie graphs and pie charts are fantastic as well. So if I say, across the board, students tend to prefer, you know, romance as a movie type. Well, okay, this is a better way of visualizing it. Actually, only by 5%, and look how there are like 4 kinds of movies people like, and they're all within 10% of each other. And when you see the slice of the pie, it's really different. So use graphs, tables, and charts to make your information interesting. It works so well, okay? Now, the other thing you want to consider is an infographic. And then my last, there's no way I'm actually going to finish this, so let me just jump to part 3. We're getting to the end here, okay? But I'm going to jump to part 3 and talk about infographics because I'm going to need a minute for that. I'll see you in part 3.